Bernadette. I am the creator and channel of the Arcana Tarot and Oracle deck. And I'm also the publisher of whatismyspiritanimal.com and buildingbeautifulsouls.com. And I'm here with my beautiful goddess sister, Dana Winters. And Dana is the author of the award-winning, what is it?
Wicca, What's the Real Deal? Breaking Through the Misconceptions. Then the second book is Sacred Objects, Sacred Space, Everyday Tools for the Modern Day Witch, and the Esoteric Dream Book, Mastering the Magical Symbolism of the Subconscious Mind.
Yeah, the subconscious mind. I'm like, da-da-da-da. Dana's all like mystical with her subconscious mind stuff, right? Anyway, Dana's books are published with Schiffer Publishing, and she has been gracious enough to join me on our journey through the tarot. And today we are talking about the minor arcana. We're going to start off with the Suit of Cups. And just very briefly, Dana, if someone has tuned in just to this video and they haven't watched the other videos, tell us in a nutshell what the minor arcana is and what it does and why it's in the Rider-Waite tarot system and why people use it. Give us your Wikipedia version.
Wikipedia version.
Wikipedia version.
Sure. The major arcana is the lesser secrets. Now, that doesn't mean lesser as in insignificant. It just means that it focuses on daily events, things that you would go through in your life, how you might handle it in everyday situation. Whereas the major arcana are the main events in your life, rites of passage, big things that you're going to go through. And there's 4 suits, of course. There's the wands, there's the cups, there's the swords, and there's the pentacles. I look at them in that order. I know Bernadette likes alphabetical. I look at them in that order.
Yeah, but after the last time that you in the minor arcana video, when you were talking about the order that you like them in, and I've changed my OCD got set aside, and I'm like, well, that makes much more sense for a reader just in terms of spiritual awakening and spiritual progress and development. So just very briefly, again, what's the order that you put the minor suits in and why? Go, Dana.
I look at them in the order for tarot meaning. I look in the order of wands, cups, swords, and then pentacles, with wands representing the most, I would say, emotionally immature, youthful kind of personality or attitude, where there's got a lot of room for growth and expansion and learning. And then the cups is about love. And so there's a little bit of maturity there. But when you first learn about love, you go from infatuation to real love, and your idea of what love changes. So you've got some more emotional growth, plenty of emotional growth that can happen. So you feel things more deeply. You might start to develop a spiritual sense when you're working with cups. When you get into swords, this is about weeding out what doesn't work for you and what does work for you. Kind of like if you think about a sword being double-edged, and you think about reflecting on that sword, seeing both sides of things, weeding out what fits your style of spirituality, emotionality, relationships, and then cutting away the rest. It's kind of like carving out a gem, creating a gem in your life. And then pentacles are what you value, achieving that value, achieving what, actualization, if you will, what you desire in life. And it's about emotional maturity. The most mature archetypes in the deck are the pentacles. So if you're looking at relationships, it would be a really mature relationship versus something in wands, which would be infatuation, puppy love, maybe relationships that don't quite pan out because there's still a lot of room for emotional growth. So right. It's a progression.
Yep. So you guys, when you are working on your tarot reading skills, whether you're reading for self or other people, or you're, trying to walk into the professional realm and start charging for your tarot readings, I love that gem of wisdom that she's got. I had never heard that before. I've been reading tarot for 1,000 years, but I come at it from the more intuitive side. And Dana's foundation is that she's like this crazy symbolism expert, like one of those people that you see at the back of a library that never come out. They just, they live their whole life here researching everything. That's how much she loves symbolism, and particularly in the tarot. And from all the different cultures, it's the other thing. It's one of the other reasons I begged her to join me on these videos, is she's just got such a crazy, rich, in-depth knowledge of symbolism, in particular tarot symbolism, from all around the world in every culture. I learn something every time that we, talk or we do these videos. And even just making that shift in my own, when people ask me to flip cards for them, just making that shift of understanding quite kind of like the maturation levels of the minor arcana, man, I mean, wow, that made a significant difference in my readings. And I, to be fair, I don't get asked to do tarot very often. People come to me for the animals and for evidential mediumship and psychic work. But occasionally people ask me to flip a card. And then if Spirit says, hey, you need to flip a couple cards for this person, I'm like, okay, I'll do that. So I hope that's helpful to you guys. But today, again, we're going to move on to the suit of cups, symbolism and meaning. What does the suit of cups mean? Really, what is everything that it alerts you to, no matter if the card is an ace, a king, a queen, a page, a knight, or 1 through or 2 through 9? What does that card really mean if you see it in a reading? And then we'll talk a little bit about, let's say that you see a big preponderance of cups, like maybe you flip out 5 cards, or you do the 3 cards, past, cards, and future, the Celtic cross spread, whatever it is you're doing. What does it mean if you see a lot of cups in the card? So just, you touched very briefly on cups, symbolism and meaning, and you really associate it with love.
Yeah.
But to be clear, that's love in all forms, right? That's romantic love, friendship,
relationships, family, all sorts of. But it's really the realm of emotion, because if you think about a cup and what it holds, so really whatever is within that cup, what you're looking at that cup representing. Cups can also represent unions between people, because you've got the cup, the upper part of the chalice that looks like a womb, and of course the stem that looks like a phallus, representing the connection of the divine. Now, if you see the divine in every person, that's about connecting people together. So it's really about relationship connections.
Yep. And also remember that, you guys out there, remember that each suit is associated with an element. So what element is associated with the suit of cups? That's water. Yes. And the water element is about diving deep into your emotions. It's all the currents and undercurrents that happen below the surface in your subconscious. And that can go very, very deeply, or it can be very surfacey. Yeah, exactly. And everything in between. And something I like to do when I read, again, because I'm very focused on intuitive tarot, is when I see a card, like the Page of Cups, you can see the water in it, right? You see the fish and you can see some of the sprinkles of water. If I look at that card and that water doesn't look crystal clear to me and it looks murky, then I'm like, and the way the water appears to me in the card, not how it's painted in the card. And just, again, I want to remind everybody, we're basing these tarot tutorials, this tarot card meaning series off the Rider-Waite. And you'll find a jillion decks out there, but even like the Arc, that is based on the Rider-Waite tarot system. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about these suits and the individual cards and the major arcana, that kind of thing. So from an intuitive level, I look to see, what does it look like? I look to see, or I feel, does the water feel warm to me? Does it feel hot to me? Does it feel ice cold to me? And I associate, those things in with that. And so the element for the suit of cups is water. And what, Dana, do you know what season is associated with the suit of cups? It's not coming to my mind immediately, because
with cups it would be, wands would be fire, would be spring. You would think summer. Actually, summer is with. Off the top of my head, I can't think of it.
Right.
I think summer. Oh no, I lied. It's the fall. It's autumn, because you think about it being associated with the direction.
It's also direction. Right. What direction? It's west. I had to look in my own book. Can you? Totally embarrassed. And I'm mostly embarrassed because
why?
Because that's listen, I'm nothing if not a shamanic practitioner, right? And so for me not to go, oh yeah, the suit of cups is associated with the West, and that's the season of fall, and it's it. Like, I know that stuff every day because that's my heart. And I'm like, oh gosh, look at me.
So I said it wrong too. It's the West.
Here's the good thing, you guys. A plug for the RTS, but you can go to my sites and get all of the symbolism, and whatnot. But that's why I included in my book, because it's a 380-page tarot guidebook. And people were like, why are you making such a big book? I'm like, this is why. Because you want to be a strong reader or an accurate reader or both, which I hope that you do. you don't got to do anything, but I highly recommend that you know the element and the direction and the season and color meanings, and even relating it to the chakras. I did an interview with a guy named Louis Krieg yesterday. God love this guy. He's a legend. He owns the Stone Age store in Glastonbury, and also he has a branch of it in Sedona. And they have the most amazing specimen quality crystals I think I've ever seen. And he does these wands, in particular, the ones, of course, I love are the ones that have all the animals on them. But I love him because he's got that same holistic view of crystals and crystal healing and sound healing. And that's what we're trying to impart to you guys based on our experience, not because we're telling you this is the way that it's done. Dana and I don't operate like that. But in our experience, which between us, we've got, 60 years experience doing this, tens and tens of thousands of readings between us. Your readings will be so much richer and deeper if you come to know all the components. So where I'm going with that is when you associate cups, with water, and then maybe you're drawn to the red color in a cup, in a particular card, and you can't really see anything but that color red, you instantaneously know that's the root chakra. And the root chakra symbolizes this. And then you start to piece holistically all the little things together so that you don't do what a fair number of readers I've observed do, which is fine if it works for them. I'm not denigrating their system at all. So don't write me and say, you're not the only one that's right. I know that. And it's not about being right. It's about teaching how Dana and I read tarot cards and what we want to accomplish with our, with how we do readings. But some readers will simply memorize whatever books they've read about the card meanings, whatever, this author says, that author says, and that's fine. That works for them. But when you open yourself up to having a broader view, your readings will then open up to have a broader, I just think they become more accurate and more just richer. Yeah, just richer. So, okay. So now we know the element that's associated with tarot. We know the season of suit of cups.
Water.
Right. West waterfall. And so when you start to get cups that show up in your tarot readings, you know what? One thing we forgot to talk about is, you mentioned it like the chalice, right? The receptivity. And I just want to tell you guys a really quick story. So I was reading for someone, a few years ago, and she did not want psychic. In her mind, psychics were, they were dark people. But if you read tarot, now that made you a good person. I was like, okay, whatever. Come on in. I'll take your money. So she comes in and I'm flipping cards. I must have laid down 10 cards and 7 of them were cups. And I'm like, I can't get away from seeing the cups. So I'm looking at these, and really the meaning of the cups ceased to be relevant. All I could see were the cups, and then I started seeing lineups of glasses of all different types and sizes and whatever. And I'm like, look, I can't proceed with this reading until I understand why cups of all different sizes and shapes are very important to you. She says, I own a bar. I'm like, wow, that makes sense. And so I then just took all those cards and I put them to the side and I started flipping new ones. And then the story unfolded in her reading. Her journey unfolded in the reading. But why the cards, the spirit, whatever it is that helps us orchestrate how these cards fall for different people, at the right time, in the right place, in the right manner, was because at the end of the reading, what she had said was, I just want you to know that was amazing. And I was like, gosh, thank you. But may I ask you why you think that was amazing? She said, I had made up my mind. If you couldn't tell me what I did for a living, I wasn't going to believe anything you said. I'm like, so I tried to talk her down from that so that she could have other good experiences with other readers. But just so you guys know, tarot can be like that. It can
very literal.
Yeah, very, very literal. And then it can be like, you think it's obscure, but it's only obscure and it doesn't make sense. Yeah. You're not putting the pieces of the puzzle together, because that's your job as a reader, is to is to make that storyboard, make that, vision board for your clients. So Dana, what would it mean to you? And I've had that happen. If somebody was having trouble getting pregnant, I've had that happen. Or if they thought they were pregnant but weren't sure and came to a psychic instead of going to a doctor, different strokes for different folks. And I've had it happen before. One of my favorite clients is, I now know, but she had the same thing. She had a lot of cups come out in her reading. And all I could see I kept hearing the word vessels, vessels, vessels. And I told her, I said, I keep hearing the word vessels and I keep seeing like bowls and cups and glasses and chalices and this and that. And she's an artist. She's a pottery maker, and she specializes in what she calls vessels. And they all have that feminine kind of feel to them. And she makes some of the most beautiful stuff. But anyway, so if you saw a lot of cups in a reading, how would that,
it depends on their position, if they're upright or in reverse. If they were upright and I saw a lot, I would think that, superficially at least, that there's something very emotional that's the prominent question for this person.
Yep.
And they're either wanting to know what they can do to try to control the situation. So if you think about a cup controlling what it holds, molding or shaping what it pours. So trying to control what goes forward. And if it's in reverse, there's a sense of loss of control. Or like, for example, if you see the 5 of cups, you think about spilt cups, things in the past that they can't change, or things that are flowing that they can't quite stop the flow of. And it's also sometimes it depends on the questions. And sometimes they'll come to me with no question and they're just like, tell me what you say. And then of course, whatever it is, I'll say, okay, well, this has definitely got something to do with the realm of emotion. And if it's upright, usually it's positive, but not always. So I won't throw that out there immediately until I get some subsequent cards to clarify if I'm starting to see with leaning toward negative energy or positive energy. But really, either they want to know emotionally how to control something, or they already feel like they're losing control.
Right. And so, again, with the intuitive side of that, and that, listen, just because I tell you guys that I'm more of an intuitive tarot reader and Dana's the queen of symbolism, that's not to say that I don't have my fair share of knowledge of symbolism and that Dana is not an intuitive tarot reader. She very much is. I mean, very much is. But when I see cups upright, the suit of cups upright, like let's just take the ace of cups, right? So the waters are flowing from it. But sometimes when I look at the card in my psychic eye, I'll see that the water has stopped short, or there is no water overflowing from it. And if I see it upside down, sometimes I'll see that water flowing the wrong way. But I've had a reading before, because water doesn't traditionally flow upwards, right? I think there are actually a couple waterfalls in the world where water does flow up, if I'm not mistaken, and there are a couple of rivers. That could be wrong. I'd have to look that up, but somehow in the back of my, my getting elderly mind, I remember that. But then I do know for sure there are several rivers in the world that flow the opposite way of all other rivers in the world.
Wow.
I had this card upside down in a reading one time, and I couldn't get past the feeling that it wasn't that things were wrong so much as they were so much as there was trickstery going on. There was some very shady stuff going on. And then I saw, like, if you go to, they have these displays at all kinds of like conventions. I go to a lot of farm conventions since I was a kid, and they'll have them at boat shows and whatnot. But where you've got water flowing, but it in the middle of the water, they're doing a trick with it, and what you don't see is it's a clear tube that's consistently looping that water. And when I saw that, I was like, there's trickery afoot here. And come to find out, there was, within their business, the shenanigans were going on, that they had a business manager that she suspected was cooking the books and stealing from them. And lo and behold, they hired a forensic bookkeeper. Just literally, I read for her on Saturday. By Wednesday, she called me and she sent me a very generous gift, because that reading had saved them tens of thousands of dollars, because they caught them early enough that this person did not decimate their business. So just what I always try to help you guys when I'm teaching classes about intuitive tarot reading is that don't think you're losing your mind if you see something and you're like, why am I seeing this, or why am I feeling this or hearing this? And it's not unusual to taste. Like I've pulled, it doesn't really matter what card, but, I know. One of my favorite cards, the Three of Cups, right? It's the celebration card. Mm-hmm. And I have, when I pulled this card sometimes, I've tasted and I've gone, and the client's gone, what's wrong? And I'm like, the liquid in those celebration cups, it should taste like great champagne or great wine or a great sparkling water or great iced tea or Gatorade or whatever. Yeah. But it tastes tart, stale. It tastes like it's turned. It's this. And that, for me, sometimes I've been able to tell people, the people you think you can trust, your closest friends, I don't think so. Just be very careful, and then go on to tell them other things. So use all of your senses, you guys, not just with the Suit of Cups, right? But with everything in the tarot and every kind of reading you do, stay, if this is the path that you choose, stay open to all of your sensations that affect you when you're seeing, these things. And come to find out in that particular reading, well, people kill me. But one of her best friends was indeed skating around with her husband. She found that out some months after. But anyway, so that's just a little adding on to when you're looking at the Suit of Cups, and you're trying to decipher its meaning, its symbolism. How do I interpret this in a tarot reading? Those are some things that can, happen for you. And Dana, I know those kinds of things happen for you in readings as well.
Yeah,
I know. Go ahead.
Yeah, the Ace of Cups that you had, I would have got the similar answer, because when I see that card in reverse, I think lack of peace of mind. The sign of Scorpio, the motto for Scorpio is I desire. So you're pursuing your desires, and the cup is not getting filled. Right. You're losing, all the liquid is pouring out of it. The dove doesnn't fly into the cup, which is a symbol of peace. So you don't get that bliss. As something's out of balance, if you look at that Eucharist, there's an equal arm cross. So this would suggest something's not equal, something's out of balance. So I would have got something very similar. Yeah. But something amiss.
Yeah, exactly. So, let's say that you find a lack of Suit of Cups. Let's say that you pull 5, 6, 7 cards. I love what you do. You do a lot of as above, so below. You do, 3 or 5 cards up here and then 3 or 5 cards under there to bring more clarity on each step. I love that process. Let's say that you do that. Let's say you've got 10 cards laid out and you see maybe 1 cup or 2 cups or no cups. What would you think about that?
If it's really scant, if I'm looking for tarot meaning, it really kind of suggests you're out of touch with emotions, or the subject in and of itself doesn't require a focus on emotions. You need to focus more on intellect, letting intellect rule. It's sometimes when they're in reverse too, you get a more subtle kind of focus on emotion. You don't want to let, emotions rule in an area where intellect should rule, because then you'll have a monstrous mess. So really kind of paying attention to whether they're upright or not, how many there are, and the numbers on the cards are also important too, because if you've only got 1 card, 1 or 2 cards, and you've got number 8 or 9, you're going to know that you're nearing the end of a cycle with emotions, so you don't have to put so much focus on it. Whereas if you are like 1 or 2, something's just starting to stir in the realm of emotion that you might want to keep your eyes open for. So it really depends on the number on the card, how many appear, and the question in of itself. If they come to you with no question, it really is showing you not a lot of focus on emotion. To start to dig in and find out why, because they may need to focus on emotion and improve that area.
Right. So that's yes, 1,000 yeses. And for me, because let me also say this, you guys. So part of a good part of the way that you'll develop with your tarot readings, right, is that you'll establish your own relationship with the cards. And when I say the cards, I don't mean the cards. I mean the characters, the archetypes in the cards. King of Cups might end up having an overall meaning of this to you, so that every time you see that card, it's like a Pavlovian dog thing, ding, 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 you hear the ringing of the bell, you show up for dinner, but ding, 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 this card means this to you. or you see Dana mentioned earlier, the 5 of Cups. That might mean something else overall to you, but then as you sit with the card for a minute while you're doing, the reading, the story will unfold maybe a little bit more. So that's where you are with You See the Cups. But, I have a lot of people. It is amazing the amount of clients that find me that have blocks in their throat chakra, and they have real problems speaking their truth. And it always stems, the root of that is always going to be something emotional, right? So when I see a lack of cups in a reading, I'm like, huh. And then I might start to, the minute I start to do that, the minute that I start to need to clear or my throat feels dry, I'm like, you've got something really important that needs to be said, that you want to say, that you are a chicken butt and you don't want to say. And they always laugh because, that can be a hard thing to share with people, because then at that point, really what you're doing when you, maybe treat them very gently or you make them laugh, they feel very relaxed and they're okay talking with you about that truth that they want to say, that needs to be said. And then you can help them remove those emotional blocks in their throat chakra or their heart chakra or wherever else you're feeling, disoriented. But I get throat chakra a lot for the cups cards because, and which is interesting because it's air that moves our throat chakra, right? So that chakra is really associated more with the air element. But I also, in a tarot reading, I associate it with the suit of cups, meaning in symbolism because, it is, but you got to think when you drink something, it's either going to go down or there's going to be a block. And then if you want to get that emotion back out, it's either going to come out or there's a block. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that has taken on a lot of that meaning for me. So, you guys, the reasons that Dana and I share these stories and we share what we are getting from the cards is because that's our established relationship with all of the suits of tarot, with all of, their elements, their directions, their cardinal directions, their seasons. But you'll develop that on your own as long as you tell, whatever it is you believe in. Maybe you work with angels and angel cards only. Maybe, you work with animals and animal cards only. Maybe you whatever it is that you work with, you'll establish the relationship with that, with these archetypes, and then they'll work together with whatever you believe is helping you get these messages and whatnot. And they will help you get the messages and the solutions that are for your and your client's highest and best good, which, by the way, let me just say this. I've had a lot of caffeine, you guys, today. So Dana, because I'm like, somebody stop me. So just feel free to go, hey, motor mouth, shut up. Let me interject you. So, I'm going to start telling this in every video that I can fit it in because I've known this for a long time. I don't know why I share it more, but I want to. There's a big buzz in the metaphysical and in particular the New Age community, which are two very different communities. Make no mistake about that. People that identify with hardcore metaphysics don't necessarily cotton to there's my Southern, they don't cotton to the dang, 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 dang. And Dana's from New York. So when she hears me being all Southern, she just laughs at me with her, her sophisticated New York ways. And I'm like, that's right. I'm your kooky country cousin. So, people use that phrase a lot. And you guys, I implore you, I beg you to remember that for your highest and best good could turn out to be the Devil card, or it could turn out to be the Tower card. Really, really traumatic things happening. But when you get to the other side of it, there's a huge spiritual awakening. You look back on that time and think, phew, I'm so grateful to have survived. I'm proud of myself for navigating the trauma, for making it so that I came out whole on the other side. But, if you're going through hell, keep going. I don't remember who said that, maybe Benjamin Franklin or one of our, I don't know, somebody else. I'll look it up. But when you tell the universe, I want what's for my highest and best good, and you are a person who is actively pursuing their own spiritual development, spiritual awakening, the universe will go, okay, trial by fire. Not always, but sometimes. So I would be very careful about that. And I learned that hard lesson very early on when I was a reader, because I would always send, out to all my guides, the universe, my higher self, angels, whatever it is you believe in. I just bring them all in. I'm like, let's party, everybody. Let's, everybody's got some input, right? Let's, have a big community fire and talk about this person. And I was given the word to have people not choices to not move forward with things, or to move forward with things, that they would call me later and go, what the hell? I did this based on what you told me here, and it resulted in this. And at first we're talking like, 25, 30 years ago, but it would devastate me. And I just couldn't figure out why I was given the wrong information. And I always, of course, internalized it. I was like, oh my God, I interpreted the data incorrectly. What a schmuck I am, right? I'm a terrible reader. I'm never going to do this again. Yak, yak, yak. But one day, a very wise person, not a reader, but very deep into spiritual awareness and development in every realm, from the gurus to the homeless person that gave her advice on the street or whatever. She took it all in and she assimilated it. And she was one of the wisest people I've ever known in my life. And she explained to me how something for your highest and best good could be about. And I was like, my gosh, that makes such perfect sense. And the minute that I tweaked that in my mind, I'm not saying that I'm never wrong, because no reader, not if you are a reader and you say, I'm 100% accurate 100% of the time, I'm going to say you is a lie, or I'm going to say you are delusional, just completely delusional. No, you're not. Nobody is. It's not possible. It's just not possible. So I know it might seem like I went off on a tangent, but if Dana and I were only to talk about like the hardcore, what is the meaning of this suit, or what is the meaning of that suit? And we just said, well, these are the meanings based on what you've read in the books that, and there are thousands of them out there that say, in the Rider-Waite system, this card means this and this card means that. If we were to say, well, that just, that means that, it would be a 5-minute video. But again, experience has taught us that it can be this, or it can be that, or it could be this or that, or it could be a little amalgamation of all of those things. So that's why we go into this. And plus, I get emails every single day. I flipped this card for myself, or I flipped that card for a client, but I felt, or I saw, or I tasted, or I heard, or I whatever. What do you think that means? And I can't get back with everybody who emails me. I wish I could, you guys. Truly, I do, but I can't. So I know that people, fledgling readers, even people that have been reading for years have these questions. They come up, new situations and things come up all the time. So, Dana, what are some of the more, I guess, surprising or like first time things that you've had happen to you when you pulled cups and you're like, well, it really should mean this, but I feel, or I hear, or I smell, or I taste, or I see this? What are some of those things for you? Because I know you've had some kooky stuff happen.
Yeah, I think that one of the weirdest things is, even today, if I look at a card, I can still see symbols or something in that card that I never saw before. And I'd be like, wait, I never noticed that there before. And it will suddenly show up. It doesn't matter how bad I've studied those cards or how often I've looked at them. And I've done thousands of readings. That's not bragging. That's just letting you know that I've done thousands of times. I should have seen this little piece of information in the background. And suddenly I'm seeing that for the first time, which means it's very important to the reading that I'm doing, because I'm seeing it for the first time. And then that will often change my view of the card going forward. It expands my knowledge. So that's why tarot is an ongoing evolution of learning. You're going to look at those things. You're going to see things you never saw before. You'll continue to see things that you never saw before. And as you develop your learning in the background, you study more, you encounter myths and stories and and, just life experience in general will change how you view the outcome of those cards. Now, one of the other things is if you see the cards and you put them together, sometimes it's almost, you ever see like one of those old movie things where when you were a kid, you would draw pictures on a piece of paper and you draw the same picture on a piece of paper. You do that on like 20 pages and then you just flip the images so it start moving. Yep. Sometimes if you put the cards together, it's as if the images really start to flow together and you'll catch glimpses of movement. And people are, what? That's crazy. It's not crazy. It really looks like the story starts to unfold like a fast, slow black and white flipping kind of movie. And then it's like telling you the story. It shows how it flows into one card and then flows into the next. So those are kind of eerie experiences. Not creepy, just like very unusual. You're like, wow. And it doesn't always happen. But when it does, it's something I greatly appreciate because I know that the experience is unique and it's revealing the story to me. It's making it easier for me to understand what I'm looking at.
Well, something that I encourage my students to open their minds and their hearts to is thought forms are real things. So, for instance, the Queen of Cups, right? In the picture, she's just an artist rendering. Okay. But she's a real queen. She's alive. She talks. She walks. She has feelings. And I say that because if you think about or you consider the millions, and I mean millions because y'all, there are people that you would never dream that have tarot cards. You'd never dream. And they keep them tucked, in the highest part of their closet so their husband and kids can't see, or their wife and kids, or, their partners or whatever. And gosh knows with kids, they do it all the time, so their parents can't find out their siblings. But when you think of the literal millions of people that have read about the Queen of Cups or any other queen in the tarot, and they've connected with the archetype, they've interpreted what she said, that's a lot of energy focused on one entity, and then it does become an entity. And when I use the word entity, Dana, you were so wise. Thank you for reminding me that. I'll use the word entity and somebody out there will go, what? Like a negative entity attachment? No, just a living thing, right? I just recently started calling it for what it is, which is I have visions. It's taken me 30 years to use that word. Usually I've always said I see, and that can be confusing to people. But when I tell you I have visions, I have had not just the Queen of Cups, but I mean, every animal in my deck, they become alive for me. Like if you've ever watched the Beatrix Potter movie with Renee Zellweger, but every artist will tell you that they have a relationship, but they come alive. I mean, I've had her turn her head and wink at me. I've had her turn her head and stick her tongue out at me. I've had all kinds of things happen. And some of those experiences you can share with clients and people.
I've had her take the chalice and chuck it at my forehead, and I'm like,
yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I have. No. I'll tell you. I'll tell you the experience.
The Queen of Cups gave me a concussion.
Ow! I gotta go to the ER. I gotta go to the ER. But but the thing is the reason that I bring that up is it's because I've established a relationship with each of the archetypes in these cards, each of the people, the animals, the whatever's in these cards, right? And that's particularly important that you do that because, yes, I'm going to use my deck again as an example because it is an extreme example. It's an animal example, okay? If you don't create and this is especially true for mediumship. If you don't create a relationship with the other side, you're not going to be given as much information as you would like to have, not only for your own development, but to do a really solid job for your clients. But just because we're talking about my deck, there is, I should have grabbed it. Eric Dunn's deck, the Illuminati Tarot. I love that deck. It is delicious. It is eye candy. It is powerful. It is holy guacamole. But you'd be hard pressed to find in his Ace of Cups or his Two of Cups or, my other favorite, the 10 of Cups, his imagery does not look like this. It doesn't. And so if you're not familiar with the cards and their meanings, the tarot cards and their meanings, in particular, each suit and their meanings, if you go to look at somebody else's cards, you might be like, hamana, 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 hamana. But as I teach in my classes, when I teach intuitive tarot, I let people get, a few classes in, and then I bring in like 15 or 20 decks that I know they've never seen. And then I hand them a deck, and then I say, just pull a random card from the deck. Just pull a random card. And then we read for each other based off of a card they've never held, never seen, out of a deck they've never held and never seen. And they only have to glom onto one thing that their spirit, that their intuition, that their third eye compels them toward. And poof, they've got a great solid reading triggered by a card they've never seen. But it is a card they've seen, because if they pull, a Four of Cups in whatever, they already have an established relationship with the archetype of the Four of Cups. Mm-hmm. And that way they can read any deck at any time, anywhere, for anybody. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
But only if they've established that relationship first.
Right. It's kind of like learning English first as the main language, and then learning how to translate that language into different languages.
Yep.
And it will translate differently. Now, once you learn that language, like your deck, you've got tarot, the Arc has the 78 cards, but you've also got the Oracle on the end. So that's not related to tarot. So you would definitely be intuitive in reading that, and of course the meanings that are in the book. So once you learn how to adapt to that system, it becomes a lot easier to tune into just any deck. And a lot of the symbolism carries over or is intertwined, and you can kind of see it in other cards. But yeah, I like the fact that yours is Oracle and tarot gives you the whole system. You can just do a million things with it. So
yeah, thank you. I love my deck too. So, but I have to tell you, I'm a collector. It's business, so I have to. Yeah, it's business. So of course I'm going to hawk my deck, and I do love my deck more than any other deck. Not because it's mine, but because my love of animals is just, if I could live on a desert island, with just me and animals. Well, I'd have to have internet so I could talk to you and fly you in and some of my other friends. But you know what I mean. But there are other decks that sometimes, if it's for a particular client, if Spirit says, no, don't use the animals, I'll go pull another deck, like my most recent favorite deck. Oh, my gosh. So I haven't made this a major announcement yet. I think I've talked about it in a couple of videos, but I haven't made a major announcement. I'm so very fortunate to be signed with Satyama Publishing. And Karen Stuth, who owns Satyama, she put out a deck with an artist named Diana Cates Dunn, and it's called The Wisdom of Tula. And it's so beautiful. They ran a Kickstarter, successful Kickstarter, and I'm not plugging this deck because she's my publisher. That's not how Bernadette rolls. It's just, if y'all knew me, it's not. But the colors, narcissistic though this may be, the color palette in this deck is my personal color palette. It's just delicious and beautiful. Yeah. And what I love is it's a deck that's made for creatives, artists and creatives. And anybody could use it, but really that's what it was designed for, to speak to the artist and creative, to help you get through the creative process. But what you'll notice is Tula doesn't have a face in all of these cards. And that's because you're supposed to see whoever's face in these cards. And the write-ups, they're so poetic. Oh my gosh. They're just beautifully written, beautifully. Your soul voice, man, I get that card a lot. Isn't it beautiful? And then here's the back of the card, which just is so happy and so bubbly.
When I see that, it gives me a sense of quantum physics. The particles, the small.
DNA. Universe. Yep. That makes very, very good sense. And you know what? This is another one of my favorite cards in this deck, the Seeker. So I got a comment on my YouTube, I got an email the other day from somebody. They were just like, you're just in this for the money. You don't do anything but hawk your own deck, blah, blah. That's not true. That's not true. And, whatever. You watched one video, you formed an opinion out of one video. So thank you for that, whoever you are. But no, that's not true. I've got hundreds of decks. And the reason I bring that up is not to comment on somebody who sent me a nastygram, but it's important, if you want it to be, if you operate this way, that you have, different decks. And I even have a deck that I have 3 or 4 of my favorite decks. I have them blended. I took my favorite cards out of each deck to make a deck. And so I'll just reach for a deck when I'm compelled that I think fits that person. Like the other day, I read for a girl. Oh, she's so sweet. She's young. She's like 22. She's never had a reading before. She was so nervous. And so I said, it's such an honor to be a person's first reading. It is truly an honor. There's a lot of pressure. I want to, I want to meet your expectations. And I said, so you read my reviews. That's why you booked a reading. And I said, I just have to tell you, I'm a very straightforward reader. She said, that's one of the reasons I chose you. And I said, so I'm just going to tell you the vision that I'm having. And she looks at me and I said, I have all colors of the rainbow and all of the hues of each of those colors and hues that we've never even seen in this world. And they're talking to me. The colors themselves are alive. They have lips. They all have different voices. And they're all smiling at me like a smiley face, like, what are they called? Icons or, you know what I'm talking about. So I said, color is literally talking to me. And it's telling me that you see color as your literal friends, like you would go have a drink with them or dinner with them or invite them over. This kid burst into tears and she said, I'm an artist. And oh my God. And she's like, I can't believe she says, you're the only person on the planet I could tell this, but she talks to her colors. When she paints, she talks to them in the tube. She talks to them on the brush. She talks to them on the canvas. This kid is in love with color. And then I said, why do I keep hearing children's voices? I said, the greater preponderance of the kind of voice I hear sounds like kids. My dream is to open a kids art center. And this triggered this kid in such a deeply emotional way, because what that said to her was, while all of her family and friends are like, you're never going to make a living as an artist. You're never going to make a living with an art studio. You've got to get a real job. Mm-hmm. I was like, well, you can choose to do that, but I'm being told your sole purpose is to color the world, however that works out. Mm-hmm. And it brought this kid such a sense of peace. So that's why I hope it's not harping to you guys, but whatever deck calls to you, whatever cards are calling to you, whatever they're saying to you, don't get wrapped up in only just the meanings and symbolism of the tarot that you read in the books. Develop those relationships, because you just never know whose life you're going to help get back on track, change for the better. You may be able to warn people of potential danger that they'll be able to head off. And it gets that serious. Now, I know some people that don't work with tarot card reversals because they don't want the negative energy in their readings. That's a call that everybody's got to make, right? But for me, why do you work with reversals, Dana?
I think that it gives it more meaning. Without it, it's almost like you're only looking at the surface of things. You can end up missing all the subtle energies that are really important, that interplay, with the bigger meanings, the major arcana and the lesser arcana. Without that, I'm not shunning anybody. If you don't want to work with reversals, I get it. It does complicate the learning. There's no doubt about that, because the meanings are subtle, more different. And there's different ways to look at them. You can look at it as blocks. You can look at it as, subtle energy. You can look at it as challenges, however you want to look at it. But you're really missing the finer details of a reading if you, at least in my opinion, for me, if you don't, include that in the reading.
Yep. And, I'm triple Scorpio, right? So I'm all about diving into the deep, dark places. Let's see what's in that underbelly. And I'm very comfortable there because I'm non-judgmental. like my goal is always to help people find their way out and help them find a solution. But you know, I just think that if you don't work with reversals, also, in addition to the uprights, you are missing the opportunity to help your client in a very real way.
Yeah.
And that sometimes can be delivering news that's pretty sucky. You know, I have a client, and she went to an astrologer buddy of mine who I highly recommend. And this was a couple of years ago, and I only just found out recently. She got up and she left the reading, never said anything to my friend, never nothing. And she simply left the reading. And I said, I've known this reader, this astrologer, for 15 years. She is the most gentle person on this planet. She would never say or do anything to offend anybody. What did she say? And she said, well, she just sat there and kept stumbling over her words. And she said, I finally said, look, just tell me the truth. And she said, your life for the next year and a half is going to be absolute, complete, and total shit. And there is no way to get around it.
Wow.
She said, I got up and I left because I couldn't hear it at that point. And I said, well, I've been reading for you that long, and I happen to know that your life for the last year and a half has been complete, total, and utter shit. And I said, so did she tell you the truth? Yes, but I wasn't in the place where I could hear that. It just sent me spinning. So I don't know that I would, put it like that way, buddy. But, and it's very unlike this particular reader to say that. So I know that she was horrified at what she saw. And I have to tell you, this client of mine has been through some absolutely harrowing, horrifying, dangerous situations in this last year and a half. But even though I asked her, you know, at the end of our reading, I said, you know, just for my own edification, I said, just knowing what was potentially on the horizon, did it give you the opportunity to arm yourself better? She said, you know, it did. It really did. And she said, I do owe her a debt of thanks. She said, and I wonder how much better I could have done if I would have stayed to listen. And I said, you know, listen, we live, we learn. I said, my sister is my North Star my whole life. And I remember early on in my life, I would look at her and go, you think you're right about everything. It turns out, you know, she's 8 years older than I am. So it turns out she's right about pretty much most things. But I understand what it's like to be in that place. And Dana, you are, you know, I get readings with you, and a better communicator you'd be very hard pressed to find than you as a reader. So yeah, you're just amazing. And I come to you with the hardest stuff, because the stuff I have to come to you with is that multidimensional. You've got to look at the nuances. You've got to look at the what ifs, the ands, the buts, the maybes, the no's, the yeses. It's not easy. And you're on the money every single time, which, by the way, I know I'm just blabbing you guys, but there's just so much that Dana and I we just want you to know and be able to experience in all the beautiful, mystical, magical ways that you can. I am like this, and I trust you implicitly as a reader and as a person, because you're like this. There are far too many readers that are in it because I'm special. I'm part of the cool kids club because I'm a psychic and a medium and a tarot reader. My spiritual gifts. You know, I discovered my spiritual gifts when I was this. Okay, like it was spiritual Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or Easter. Yeah, okay, you know, Yule. Okay, come on, people. And they, you know, when Dana and I say, we want to be right, please understand that doesn't come from a place of ego. We probably should replace that by saying, we want to interpret things accurately for the client, but you are the way I am. You're so hyper-focused on getting that person what they need. You are the clearest channel I've ever known, besides me. And well, that's not true. Me and there are a couple of other friends of mine. Catherine Skaggs that has the Mythical Goddess Tarot. She's a really good friend of mine. If you guys are into goddesses, the Mythical Goddess Tarot, my deck is in my TV room. I was playing with it the other night with a friend of mine on the phone, but she's also an amazingly clear channel. And there are some other people, when I say clear channel, what I mean is you're not afraid of a client telling you, no, that doesn't resonate, or no, that's not right. You don't fall apart. You don't go into shutdown, and then you don't start making up crap because, you want to give them what they want to hear. You're a truth teller. You're a truth seer. And there are way too many people that are too caught up in whether they're right or wrong and how somebody else is going to interpret that. And then some people are in this, some readers are in this just because, again, they want to be part of the cool kids club. And don't get me started. That's a whole subject for another video. But okay, so I know I've blabbed a lot about the Suit of Cups in the Rider-Waite Tarot system. Dana, do you have anything else to add? And if not, we'll just wrap up here.
Well, quickly, this Suit of Cups, I know we talked a lot about emotions, but it does also apply to spiritualism, dreams, anything that relates to the water, the element of water. So imaginations, creativity. And really, if you think about emotions being the umbrella of all of that, your emotional progress with your spiritual progress, how you feel about spiritualism, your emotional progress as far as creativity and dreams, just put like emotion plus spiritualism, emotion plus creativity, and you can add those things together. But again, it's about shaping things and making movement forward. And just to recap, you had touched on the devil card and the tower card. And I always see them like showing up in movies and people like, dun, 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 this is evil.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean all the time that your life is going to fall apart. And sometimes the very thing that you don't see coming might be exactly what you need. So you can't assume anything about any tarot card until you really look at the layout and see what's coming for you.
Hey, Dana, you mentioned something. Here we go again. You mentioned something about dreams. And that's my bad. We've got to remember to talk about dreams in all of our. Yeah, because it's your thing. You're an amazing dream interpreter and dream analyst. It is amazing. And I wonder, do you think, because what triggered me and sent me down this rabbit hole is that you said umbrella. And an umbrella, especially upside down or invert, what would be inverted to an umbrella, but we hold an umbrella, what would be inverted in the Suit of Cups. Mm-hmm. It looks like a cup's turned upside down, but upside down for an umbrella is an upright Suit of Cups card. But do you think that in dreams or even in whatever anybody's doing, let's say you're not even using the cards, but you keep seeing receptacle kind of things that aren't cups, umbrellas, canyons.
Yes. Signs and omens that resonate with you.
What if you see bras? That's
the old guys would be dreaming about the Suit of Cups 24/7.
Not all guys, but some guys.
Okay, 90% of them,
right? So it's a universal thing. Whoever wants to dream about bras, but could you say never a dull moment in our videos? So do you think that people do you think it would be safe for them to go, why do I keep seeing this? And relate it to the tarot, to the Suit of Cups?
Absolutely. I'll tell you one of the weirdest experiences I ever had. This was before I decided to go professional for, charging clients. And it's like, do I really want to do this? Am I ready for this? And that's a big step. That's a big question, going from doing it for yourself and your friends to, charging people money for what you do. And I went into the grocery store, and sure enough, it's no special holiday, middle of summertime, actually it was January, I think. And I turned and I looked, I could not believe this. A man was dressed up as the Fool. It was a gesture, just standing in front of me. There was my answer. I was like, answer, problem solved. What were the likelihood of me seeing a gesture in the middle of, a local grocery store is pretty thin. But I knew that was my answer. The Fool being, take that leap of faith, so to speak.
Yep. It is so funny you mentioned that. I am learning how to do mosaics, and I belong to this super, super, super cool Facebook group called Mosaic Mentoring, and they really do mentor there. It's amazing. If you guys are interested in mosaics, Mosaic Mentoring, right? Mm-hmm. And I had a question about, I think it was like a way to move forward with the second printing of the arc, something like that. And and I saw a notification pop up that somebody had posted in Mosaic Mentoring, and I popped it on, and this reader and mosaicer named Frances Green, she had posted her hermit mosaic. She's mosaicing all the tarot cards in the Rider-Waite deck. And I looked at it and went, there's your sign. And I knew that the thing that had been most on my mind and my heart, and I saw it in a mosaic Facebook group, y'all. And then I wrote in the comments, I was like, oh my God, I'm a tarot reader of a lot of years. This is amazing. Do you mind if I share this to all the tarot groups that I belong to? And she's like, oh, I'm a reader too. And then she and I have connected in like Tarot Nerds and a few of the other, tarot groups that I belong to. So that's another thing when you guys are readers, especially getting messages for yourself or other people. If you happen to see something that reminds you of the tarot or is literally the tarot, like you with the Fool card standing right in front of you, me with the mosaic of the Hermit card right in front of me, when I've just been like, oh God, I don't know what I do. Ping, ding, 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 with my ADHD, I turned around and went, oh, something else shiny. And I went off on that. But it happened to be the message from Spirit that I needed at the time. Do you know what I mean? Crazy stuff. So you guys, thank you so much for joining us. We hope this has been helpful to you. We hope this gives you a broader view of the Suit of Cups, how to interpret it, how to use it in a reading, how to amp up your intuitive tarot skills. Dana, thank you so much for joining me. I learn so much every time I'm with you. You're just such a gift to me and all my wild ones. And anybody that will pay attention and listen, you're such a gift. And you guys, you can book a reading with Dana. The link to her luckyfrogtarot.com, which is her site. You can find her on Facebook under Dana Winters. Either way, reach out if you want to get a reading. She's an amazing reader. You can book a reading with me. Our links are there in the notes section below. And you'll also find links to my websites that have very deep, detailed, symbolism and meaning for the cardinal directions, the elements, the seasons, and you can get a little deeper in that. You can also take a look in the book if you have the Arc Tarot, and you can look at them there too. But we will see you next time as we continue our journey through the tarot. All right, you guys, stay wild. Take care.